Hello guys, today I'm testing Armored Core 6 on Valve Steam Deck. The game mostly runs fine on the deck, but there are instances where performance sees a huge drop. On screen you can see the game running on the high preset at 15 watts, and we're getting somewhere between 33 and 42 FPS, depending on what's going on. If you're just moving around or fighting a few enemies, you'll be on the higher side, and when you get explosions and more enemies, the FPS will drop to the mid-30s. The game feels alright though. While playing on the Steam Deck, these drops in FPS aren't going to break the experience for most of you, since these drops occur while you're trying to avoid being hit, so you'll be trying to not take damage instead of noticing these drops. But yeah, I understand that some of you guys prefer higher frame rates. I include myself in this group. I really enjoy higher frame rates, but I also like having a good looking graphics. So let's move on and have a look at the performance we gain by dialing down the settings to the medium preset instead of the high preset. Alright, so after playing for over 30 minutes on the medium preset, I got an average of 43 FPS. On the low and high end, I was getting 35 and 53 FPS respectively. So, as you guys can see, we're getting around an 18% FPS increase from using the medium preset instead of the high preset. The high preset does look a tiny bit better, but most of you guys really shouldn't bother since you really need to know what to look for to find the differences, especially if you're just casually playing the game and not analyzing the graphics. I think that the medium preset offers the best balance between performance and graphics quality, if you don't want to worry about playing around with the in-game settings of course. Well, I think I would never choose to play using the low preset, to be frank. This looks like a PS4 game at best. It kind of reminds me of the older Ace Combat games, where it's mostly empty space with a few things thrown around here and there to try to fill in the map. Now the pop-in and render distance is really noticeable. Like yeah, sure, the average FPS are a bit higher, at around 45 FPS, but the game doesn't really look that good. Well, we could use the low preset if you wanted to maximize battery life. We could limit the deck to 30 Hz on the low preset, and I think we could probably be getting around 2.5 hours of battery life. But if you're at home, I think you can skip the low preset unless you really want those extra 2 average FPS for some reason. And now let's move on and try the ultra preset. Okay, now this looks really good guys. I could definitely play on the ultra preset if it weren't because Valve Steam Deck isn't capable of keeping a steady 30 FPS. I could probably use these settings if the deck was averaging around 28 FPS, but after playing for over 20 minutes with these settings, the average frame rate I got was 24 FPS. It just doesn't make the cut. Once you fight a boss or just a tougher enemy, you're really going to feel the need to have higher FPS. So, with these results, I'd say that all of you guys can skip the ultra preset on the Steam Deck. It's just not worth it for the loss in performance. Maybe if it was a different type of game, you could do 24 FPS, but Armored Core 6 is an action-packed game where you really need at least 30 FPS to make it enjoyable. Alright, now let's move on to the advanced stuff. I'm going to show you guys my customized settings. Well, Armored Core 6 doesn't support FSR, but we can always set the resolution lower than the Steam Deck's native resolution, and we'll make the FSR 1 filter kick in. So the first thing that I've done is set the resolution to 960 by 600. This is equivalent to using FSR 1 quality, and here you can see that I'm mostly using high settings with some medium and low splashed here and there. Using the ultra settings doesn't add much value in most cases, especially in the most intensive parts of the game, as we'll see in a minute. And here you have some gameplay with the custom preset. Even though we're using a lower resolution, and unlike in other games where I use this exact same approach, the text is still pretty readable, which is really nice. On the most common scenarios, we're not getting an average of 45 FPS, which was the same FPS we were getting on the low preset, but with higher graphics quality and nearly the same resolution. If you limit the Steam Deck screen to 40 Hz, you can expect over 2 hours of gameplay with my custom settings. But I did notice that in some scenarios, performance is taking a hit regardless of the graphics preset we use. On average, I saw a 40% decline in performance, like on the mission that you're seeing on screen now, where even on my optimized settings, we can see the FPS drop below 30 FPS. I must admit that it wasn't distracting having these drops while playing the game, since it looks really impressive. and the FPS are still around 30 FPS. Okay guys, there isn't much more to add besides making it clear that Armored Core 6 is playable on the Steam Deck, and with good graphics, and at a decent frame rate. And even though the game doesn't natively support FSR, we can leverage the Steam Deck's native FSR1 implementation in case we want to get a few extra FPS. If you found the video useful, please give it a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and if you aren't subscribed already, please consider subscribing so that you don't miss out on our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.